The Forerunner portal tore reality like tissue paper. Master Chief had survived the fall of Reach, the detonation of Halo rings, and the Didact's fury. He'd walked through hell wearing half a ton of armor and emerged every time, because that's what Spartans did. But as the slipspace rupture collapsed around his Pelican dropship, as Cortana's fragmented warnings became static and the physics of his universe simply stopped making sense, John 1:17 realized he was entering something worse than hell. He was entering the unknown. The Pelican screamed through skies that burned gold instead of blue, trailing plasma and broken metal. His hoodie flickered with error messages in languages that shouldn't exist. Cortana's avatar materialized for half a second, corrupted, pixelated, wrong, before vanishing into the system. Chief? Readings? Impossible. Matter behaving like magic? Then impact. The Pelican carved a trench through what his sensors identified as a major population center. Skyscrapers, millions of civilians. His training kicked in before conscious thought. He locked the dropship's trajectory, burned remaining fuel to slow the crash, and prayed the armor would hold. It did. Barely. John kicked open the twisted hatch and stepped into a world that felt fundamentally wrong. The gravity was right, the atmosphere breathable, but something in the air itself carried weight his armor's sensors couldn't classify. Power. Potential. His motion tracker went haywire, detecting movement everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. He was standing in a massive crater in the middle of a gleaming city. Art Deco architecture reached toward the sky with impossible grace. People were screaming, running, but also filming, pointing devices at him. The tactical situation made no sense. Cortana, status report. Static, then barely. Chief, this universe. Fundamental forces all wrong. Magic is real here. Gods walk as men. I'm trying to compensate, but be careful. You're not in Kansas anymore. A reference. She was making references while her code was literally fragmenting. That meant she was still in there, still fighting. Understood. Priority 1, assess threat level. Priority 2, locate command structure. Priority 3. He never finished. The air cracked, and something impossible happened. A figure appeared in the sky above him. Not flew, not jumped, appeared, and descended with arms crossed. Male, cape billowing despite no wind. The symbol on his chest caught the sunlight and seemed to glow with its own internal radiance. A stylized S that John's tactical database had no reference for. But he recognized a god when he saw one. The figure landed 20 meters away, with enough force to crater the pavement. Yet somehow the impact felt controlled. Gentle, even. Blue eyes studied John with an intensity that suggested X-ray vision or equivalent scanning technology. When the figure spoke, his voice carried authority that reminded John of Lord Hood, but with something else underneath. Hope, maybe. Or warning. I don't know what you are or where you came from, the man said, hovering half a meter off the ground now. But you just crashed a military vehicle into the heart of Metropolis. I need you to power down your weapons and come with me. People are terrified, and I'd rather this ends peacefully. John's hand stayed near his assault rifle. Every instinct screamed that this entity could vaporize him before he could blink. But Spartans didn't back down. They assessed, adapted, and completed the mission. Master Chief Petty Officer John 117, UNSC Navy. Serial number 117. I request immediate contact with local command authority. My arrival was unintentional. The civilians are not in danger from me. The floating man's eyes narrowed slightly. UNSC? That's not any military designation I know, and I know them all. You're heavily armed, wearing what looks like advanced combat armor, and you just fell out of the sky. That makes you my problem until I understand what's happening. I'm going to ask one more time. Stand down. Behind the figure, John's motion tracker lit up with multiple fast-moving contacts. More enhanced individuals converging on his position. He was outnumbered, outgunned, and operating without intelligence in hostile territory. Spartans were made for worse odds than this. Negative, John said calmly. Until I establish secure communications with proper authority and determine the nature of the dimensional breach that brought me here, I maintain defensive posture. I mean no harm to civilians, but I will defend myself if engaged. The man sighed, actually sighed, and uncrossed his arms. I really hoped you'd take the easy way. Then he moved. Master Chief understood that he'd been wrong. This wasn't a god. Gods didn't move faster than thought. But as John's shields flared under the impact of superspeed restraint, as his armor systems screamed warnings about forces that should pulverize steel, he also realized something else. The man was pulling his punches, massively. The figure could have destroyed him instantly, but was trying to subdue without harm. That meant negotiation was still possible. Good. John had survived 30 years of war. He could survive first contact with whatever this was. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. Hope shines brightest in the darkest night. The fight lasted 6 seconds. John managed to dodge twice, his armor's predictive systems and Spartan reflexes giving him microseconds of warning. But on the third strike, the man grabbed his arm with impossible strength and simply held him. No aggression, no cruelty, just immovable force. "I don't want to hurt you," the man said, and John believed him. "But I can't let you stay armed until I know you're not a threat. Work with me here." John's tactical assessment crystallized. This entity possessed overwhelming physical superiority, but operated under rules of engagement that prioritized civilian safety and minimal force. Military discipline with moral restraint. That was something John understood. Agreed. Conditional cooperation pending debrief with local command. But I keep the armor. It's life support. The man studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Fair enough. I'm Superman. Welcome to Earth. Though something tells me you've heard that before. Different Earth. Cortana's voice crackled through his speakers. Chief, I'm reading this planet's history through their networks. You're not going to believe what passes for normal here. Superman's eyes widened slightly. You have an AI. Interesting. Come on, soldier. The Justice League is going to want to meet you. And trust me, I'm the friendly one. As John was escorted skyward toward something called the Watchtower, he caught sight of the city below. Clean, bright, protected. Nothing like the war-torn colonies he'd spent decades defending. But his HUD was already flagging anomalies, energy signatures that defied physics, individuals moving at impossible speeds. And somewhere in the data streams Cortana was analyzing, references to something called the Injustice Timeline, where this Superman had become a dictator. Master Chief had fought the Covenant, the Flood, and the Forerunners. Now he was entering a universe where the heroes were more dangerous than any enemy he'd ever faced. The mission parameters had just become very complicated. The Watchtower hung in geosynchronous orbit, like a monument to impossible dreams. Master Chief had seen UNSC Infinity, had walked the ring worlds of the Forerunners, but this structure radiated something his armor couldn't quantify. Purpose, maybe, or hubris. Superman had carried him through the atmosphere without strain, as if John's half-ton of Spartan and Mjolnir weighed nothing. The flight had given Cortana time to pull fragmented data from what she called the Internet, a primitive but expansive information network that somehow contained the entire history of heroism and horror on this Earth. "Chief," she whispered through his neural link, her voice stronger now that she'd adapted to local physics. "This place, the Justice League, they're not soldiers, they're symbols, icons. Superman alone has stopped alien invasions, asteroid impacts, and something called Doomsday that killed him. He died and came back. That's not hyperbole. Actual resurrection." "Noted. Threat assessment? If they turn hostile, we lose. Badly. The Flash moves faster than light. Green Lantern creates solid constructs from willpower. Wonder Woman is a literal demigod. And Batman," she paused. "Batman is human. Completely human. But he has contingency plans to kill every member of this team. The files are encrypted, but I found references. He's already thinking about how to stop you." The airlock cycled. They entered a conference room with a massive table and Earth rotating silently below, through panoramic windows. 7 figures waited, and John's threat assessment went into overdrive. Superman stood at the head of the table, arms crossed but posture open. Beside him, a woman in armor that screamed ancient warfare. Golden lasso at her hip, sword and shield crossed on her back, eyes that had seen centuries of battle. Wonder Woman, his database supplied. Amazonian princess. Demigod strength and combat mastery. But it was the figure in the shadows that made John's hand hover near his sidearm. All black armor, pointed ears, cape that seemed to drink light, eyes hidden behind white lenses that tracked John's every micro-movement. Batman, the human who planned to kill gods. "Master Chief," Superman began, his voice diplomatic but firm. "We've done some quick research. Your armor's energy signature doesn't match any known technology on Earth or in our stellar databases. Your AI companion is incredibly advanced, and your arrival tore a hole in space-time that our sensors are still trying to understand. So, let's start simple. Why are you here?" John's training demanded full debriefing with proper authority. But these people commanded orbital weapons platforms and could apparently hear his heartbeat from across the room. Operational security was already compromised. Unintentional incursion during slipspace transit. Forerunner portal malfunction. My mission was evacuation of civilian population from contested zone. The portal destabilized during enemy contact. I have no intelligence regarding this universe's strategic situation, no hostile intent toward local population, and no extraction protocol. The dark figure, Batman, spoke for the first time. His voice was gravel and accusation. "You're a soldier, enhanced physiology, military-grade armor, weapons designed to kill efficiently. You crashed into a major city. First action was tactical assessment, not surrender. You fought Superman. Defended myself against unknown contact demonstrating overwhelming force." John corrected. "I prioritized civilian safety by controlling my dropship's descent vector. I maintained defensive posture because I had no intelligence regarding local command structure or rules of engagement." "You sound like a good soldier," Wonder Woman said, and her voice carried weight that reminded John of ceremonial officers, but with an edge of steel underneath. "I understand following orders, Chief." "But whose orders?" "You mentioned UNSC, United Nations Space Command. Our database found historical references to similar designations. But you're clearly not from our Earth, so who do you serve?" It was the right question. Diana Prince, he remembered from Cortana's briefing, was from Themyscira, warrior culture. She understood chains of command and the weight of duty. "I serve humanity," John said simply. "My augmentation was voluntary." Not entirely true, but the Spartan II program's child conscription wasn't relevant here. "And my mission is protection of human colonies against existential threats. For 30 years, I've fought the Covenant, a theocratic alliance that glasses planets and genocides populations. I've fought the Flood, a parasite that converts all biomass into weapons. I complete my missions. I protect civilians. That's what Spartans do." A new voice crackled through the speakers. Younger, mechanical. "Yeah, and your Cortana just tried to hack our systems about 40 times in the last 2 minutes. Nice try, lady. But Mother Box technology is a bit beyond your processing architecture." A figure materialized, half human, half machine, glowing with energy that John's sensors flagged as similar to Forerunner tech, but fundamentally different. Cyborg. Victor Stone. Walking fusion of human and something called a Mother Box. Cortana's avatar flickered on John's HUD, looking embarrassed. "I was just doing preliminary reconnaissance. It's not hacking if I'm trying to help." "It's absolutely hacking," the Flash, red suit, lightning crackling around him, said with a grin. "But points for attempting to crack Victor's security that fast. What kind of AI are you?" "Smart AI, 4th generation. Created from neural mapping of Dr. Catherine Halsey's cloned brain tissue. I have 7 years of operational lifespan before rampancy. And I've already used 3 of them, keeping this Spartan alive." The room went very quiet. "You're dying?" Superman asked softly. "Eventually, all smart AIs do. But that's not today's problem." Batman stepped forward, and John's instincts screamed. No powers, no enhancements. But the way he moved suggested mastery of violence that rivaled any ODST instructor John had trained with. "Your armor has shield technology, energy-based defense system. Covenant design?" "Reverse engineered from Covenant technology, manufactured by UNSC," John confirmed. "Adaptive shielding, recharges after damage. Currently operating at 78% efficiency due to incompatibility with local energy sources." "And your weapons?" Batman produced a small device, scanned John from 3 meters away. "Plasma-based? Projectile? Both?" "Primarily projectile. MA-5D Individual Combat Weapon System, M6H2 Magnum Sidearm. I have limited plasma reserves from Covenant weapon salvage. Ammunition is finite. No resupply available." Batman's lips thinned. "So you're stranded. Powerful, well-trained, heavily armed, but stranded. That makes you either desperate or pragmatic. Which is it?" John met the white lenses with his golden visor. 2 masks staring across tactical calculations neither would share. "Both. I adapt to circumstances. My priority is finding a way home to continue my mission. Secondary priority is minimizing my impact on your civilian population. Tertiary priority is avoiding unnecessary conflict with local authority. And if we determine you're a threat?" Batman's hand moved fractionally toward his belt. Wonder Woman's hand shot out, gripping Batman's wrist. "Bruce." He answered our questions honestly. He controlled his crash to save lives. He's a warrior, not a monster. I know the difference. The tension stretched. Superman floated forward slightly, positioning himself between John and Batman with careful deliberation. "We're not your enemy, Chief. But we've learned to be careful. We've faced alien invasions, dimensional breaches, and..." He glanced at Batman. "We've seen what happens when soldiers follow orders without question. So here's what's going to happen. You'll stay in the watchtower under observation. We'll help you repair your systems and search for a way home. In exchange, you share your tactical knowledge and help us understand the threat that might follow you through that portal. Because something's coming, isn't it? Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, spoke from near the window, his ring glowing faintly. That kind of dimensional tear doesn't just happen. You were running from something. John's silence was answer enough. Cortana materialized fully on the conference table's holographic projector, her avatar resolving into sharp detail. She looked tired. The Covenant was pursuing us. Specifically, a fleet led by a Zealot-class commander who believes humanity's extinction is divine mandate. If the portal remained open, if they tracked us, then we might have an alien armada incoming. Batman finished. Wonderful. Another Tuesday. Superman's jaw tightened. How long do we have? Unknown, John said. The portal collapsed. It should have severed the connection. But Forerunner technology doesn't follow conventional rules. Days, weeks, maybe never. I can't guarantee anything. Wonder Woman released Batman's wrist and turned to John, her eyes appraising him not as a threat, but as a fellow warrior. Then we prepare. Chief, you've fought these Covenant for decades. You know their tactics, their weapons, their weaknesses. We need that knowledge. And in return, we'll help you survive in a universe very different from your own. One where gods wear capes, John said quietly. One where humans stand beside them, Diana corrected. You'll find we have soldiers here too. And perhaps you'll discover that completing the mission means something different when you fight alongside heroes instead of just for humanity's survival. Batman hadn't moved, his tactical assessment of John ongoing. But Superman extended a hand, the same hand that could crush John's armor like tinfoil. Truce, the Man of Steel offered. Master Chief looked at the hand, then at the League assembled before him. Legends, icons, gods and humans pretending the difference didn't matter. He'd fought for 30 years in a war where humanity was losing, where survival meant sacrifice and moral compromises and doing whatever it took to see tomorrow. Maybe here, in a universe where hope apparently won, he could learn something different. Or maybe he'd teach them what war really cost. John clasped Superman's hand. Truce, until my mission parameters change. Fair enough, Superman said. Welcome to the Justice League, Chief. Try not to shoot Batman. He's sensitive about that. From the shadows, Batman's response was granite. I've already identified 14 ways to disable your armor. Don't give me a reason to use them. Cortana laughed, actually laughed. Oh, I like him. Chief, we're going to fit in great here. John wasn't so sure, but Spartans adapted. It's what they did, even when adaptation meant standing among gods and pretending he belonged. The Batcave smelled of limestone and paranoia. John had been escorted, politely but firmly, through a quantum tunnel that transported him from the Watchtower to a cave system beneath something called Wayne Manor. The technology was impossible by UNSC standards. No slip space, no visible mechanism. Just step through a doorway in space and emerge somewhere else. Magic, Cortana had whispered. Or technology so advanced it might as well be. Batman worked at a computer array that made UNSC tactical centers look primitive. Holographic displays rotated through surveillance feeds, threat assessments, and files marked with code names John recognized from history. Ares, Darkseid, Doomsday. Each file contained contingencies, battle plans, weaknesses, ways to kill them. You're wondering why I brought you here instead of keeping you in the Watchtower, Batman said without turning around. His cowl hid his expression, but his voice carried the weight of someone who'd lost count of his own scars. Affirmative. Superman indicated I'd remain under observation in orbit. This location represents significantly reduced oversight and increased access to sensitive intelligence. Because Superman trusts too easily. Batman's fingers flew across holographic keyboards, pulling up files on John's armor, energy signatures from the portal breach, and John's threat assessment spiked, detailed schematics of Mjolnir armor that Cortana had never transmitted. Wonder Woman sees a warrior and thinks she understands you. Hal thinks you're interesting. Victor wants to talk AI architecture with Cortana. But I know what you are. Chief. And what am I? Batman finally turned. Behind the cowl, white lenses fixed on John's visor. 2 masks, no faces. Just purpose and paranoia staring across the cave. You're a weapon. Conscripted as a child, augmented at 14, trained to complete missions regardless of cost. You don't question orders. You don't hesitate. You've killed thousands, probably tens of thousands. And you sleep soundly because you believe it was necessary. You're the most dangerous kind of soldier, the one who thinks he's a hero. John's hand didn't move toward his weapon. Batman would see it coming, probably had countermeasures already deployed. Instead, he stood perfectly still. You researched the Spartan 2 program. Cortana's encryption is good, but I'm better. I know about Dr. Halsey. I know about the 75 children who were taken. I know that 33 died during augmentation. I know that you don't remember your parents' faces. And I know that you've never once questioned whether humanity's survival justified turning children into weapons. The cave felt colder. John's HUD showed Cortana's avatar flickering with what he'd learned to recognize as anger. Chief, she said softly, I can shut down his systems. Just say the word. Negative. Stand down. Batman's lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile. Smart. Because I've already isolated you from external networks, and the cave's defense systems are calibrated to your armor's energy signature. You'd last 15 seconds before the gas would force you to remove your helmet or suffocate. But you knew that. You assessed threats the moment you entered. It's what soldiers do. You brought me here to threaten me. No. Batman stood, and despite being several inches shorter and 100 pounds lighter, his presence filled the cave. I brought you here to give you a choice. Superman will offer you redemption. Diana will offer you brotherhood. But I'm offering you the truth. He gestured to the screens. Files rotated. Superman with glowing red eyes, standing over bodies. Wonder Woman executing someone in cold blood. Flash vibrating his hand through a man's chest. These are from another timeline, the Injustice universe. Superman lost control. Diana enabled him. Together they conquered Earth, killed heroes who opposed them, and created a regime worse than any dictatorship in history. The League stopped them. Barely. But the point, Chief, is that even here, even in a universe where hope supposedly wins, the heroes can become tyrants overnight. John studied the images. Superman's face twisted with grief and rage. Wonder Woman's warrior code turned to justification for execution. Heroes becoming the very thing they fought against. It looked remarkably like some of Oni's classified missions, the ones John didn't talk about. You're showing me this because you think I'd enable that kind of authority, John said quietly. A soldier who follows orders without question. Point me at the enemy, and I eliminate them. Make Superman the commanding officer, and I'd never hesitate. Would you? The question hung in the cave's darkness. John thought about reach. About the orbital defense generators he'd protected while the planet burned. About the civilian transports that didn't make it out because his squad prioritized military assets. About the Covenant he'd killed. Warriors who believed they were righteous, who had families, who died never understanding why humanity wouldn't just accept extinction. He thought about the missions Dr. Halsey had sent him on, the ones where civilian casualties were acceptable losses, where he'd completed objectives knowing people would die because the alternative was everyone dying. He thought about whether he'd ever actually had a choice. "I've made compromises," John admitted. "War requires them. But I've never killed someone who wasn't actively threatening human survival. I've never executed prisoners. I've never turned my weapons on civilians. There are lines even soldiers don't cross." "Are there?" Batman pulled up another file. John's file. Combat history. Mission reports. Body count. "Because from where I'm standing, you've spent 30 years being pointed at enemies and eliminating them. The UNSC said the Covenant were monsters, so you killed them. Dr. Halsey said augmentation was necessary, so you endured it. Every order, every mission, you completed without question because you believed it served the greater good." He stepped closer, close enough that John could see his own reflection in the white lenses. "So tell me, Master Chief, if Superman asked you to help establish a regime, promised it would save lives, prevent wars, create perfect order, would you follow that order? Would you complete that mission?" Cortana materialized between them, her avatar defensive. "Chief has saved humanity a dozen times over. Without him, the Covenant would have glassed Earth. Without him, the Flood would have consumed the galaxy. He's not some mindless weapon." "He's exactly that," Batman said softly. "And so am I." The words fell like hammer blows. "I'm human," Batman continued. "No powers, no enhancements, just will and preparation and the absolute certainty that I'm right. I've broken bones, shattered minds, and pushed people to the edge of death because I decided they were threats. I've built weapons to kill my friends because I don't trust them with absolute power. I've crossed every line except one, and sometimes I wonder if that makes me noble or just squeamish." He gestured to the cave around them. Trophies from battles, giant penny, Joker card, Robin's suit in a glass case with bullet holes. "I know what you are, Chief, because I look in the mirror every morning and see the same thing. A weapon, a tool. Something that chose to be used because the alternative was letting innocent people die. But here's the difference. I chose this. You didn't. You were taken, augmented, aimed, and now you're standing in a universe where the weapons are so powerful they could reshape reality, and you're still waiting for someone to give you orders." John's fists clenched, not in anger, in recognition. "So what's the choice you're offering?" Batman pulled up one final file. Mjolnir armor schematics, detailed, complete, including the neural interface that connected John's brain directly to the suit, the one that made him more machine than man, the one he could never safely remove. "I can help you. Wayne Enterprises has technology that can recharge your systems, upgrade your shields, even manufacture ammunition. I can give you everything you need to survive in this universe until we find a way to send you home. But in exchange, you need to understand something." He deactivated the holographic displays. The cave fell into shadow, lit only by the distant glow of the computer screens. "The Justice League will try to make you one of them. They'll offer you hope, brotherhood, redemption. But you're not a hero, Chief. You're a soldier. And soldiers don't get happy endings. They get missions. So when the time comes, and it will come, When someone in this universe needs a weapon instead of a symbol, I need to know you'll think before you pull the trigger. You want me to disobey orders. I want you to have orders worth following. Because the moment you stop questioning, the moment you just complete the mission without asking who benefits or who dies, you become exactly what the Covenant thought you were, a monster in human skin. Cortana was silent. John knew why. She'd been with him for 3 years. She'd seen every mission, every compromise, every time he'd followed orders that cost lives because the alternative cost more. She'd never once questioned whether he should have refused. "You said there's one line you won't cross," John said finally. "What is it?" "I don't kill." Batman's voice carried absolute conviction. No matter how much easier it would make things, no matter how many lives it might save. Because the moment I decide I have the right to execute someone, I become judge, jury, and executioner. And that's how tyrants are born. John thought about the Covenant, the ones he'd killed without hesitation because they were trying to glass planets. The ones who probably had families waiting. The ones who died believing humanity was an affront to their gods. He thought about whether refusing to kill them would have saved anyone, or just meant humanity died faster. "In war, hesitation kills," John said. "This isn't war," Batman countered. "Not yet. This is first contact. And how you handle it determines whether you're Chief the weapon or John the man." The silence stretched. Somewhere above, Gotham sprawled in its perpetual twilight. Somewhere in orbit, the Justice League debated what to do with the soldier from another universe. Somewhere in slip space, maybe the Covenant fleet was still searching. But here, in the cave, John 117 faced the first order he'd received in 30 years that felt like a choice. "I'll work with you," John said finally. "I'll upgrade my systems. I'll share tactical intelligence on the Covenant. But I won't compromise my mission. Humanity's survival comes first, always. Even if humanity doesn't want to be saved your way. Especially then." Batman studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Good. You're honest, at least. That's more than most. But Chief, when Superman asks you to help save this world, when Diana tells you about honor, when the League makes you feel like maybe you can be something more than a weapon." He turned back to his computers, dismissing John with a gesture. "Remember that hope is a luxury soldiers can't afford. And in this universe, hope has already failed once." The quantum tunnel activated behind John. Back to the watchtower. Back to the heroes who thought symbols could change the world. But Cortana's voice was quiet in his neural link as they stepped through. "Chief, was he right about us?" John didn't answer, because he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Spartans completed missions. That's what they did. Even when the mission was figuring out who they'd become. Wonder Woman found him on the observation deck at Oro 300 hours. Master Chief stood before the panoramic window, Earth rotating silently below. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. From orbit, it looked exactly like his Earth, like home. But Cortana's database integration had shown him the differences. Nations that didn't exist in his timeline, histories that diverged centuries ago, and heroes who'd prevented wars before they started. His Earth had colonies scattered across stars, glass craters where cities used to be. A humanity that survived by becoming harder, colder, more willing to sacrifice. This Earth had Superman. "You don't sleep," Diana said. Not a question. She moved like water. Grace and power in perfect balance, armor shifting with her movements. Her sword and shield remained in her quarters. But John knew she didn't need weapons to kill him. Spartans require less rest than baseline humans. 4 hours per sleep cycle maintains combat effectiveness. You talk like a mission report. She stood beside him, close enough that John's motion tracker registered her presence, but far enough to respect tactical spacing. A warrior's courtesy. But you watch Earth like a man looking at something he lost. My Earth is under siege, has been for decades. The Covenant's goal is human extinction, total genocide of every colony, every ship, every person. They glass planets from orbit, superheat the surface until the crust liquefies. Reach fell while I was escorting Dr. Halsey off-planet. 400 million casualties, more if you count the orbital stations. Diana's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes darkened. You've seen your world burn. Multiple worlds. That's why the Spartan program exists. We're force multipliers. One Spartan is worth 100 Marines in conventional combat. Against the Covenant, sometimes we're worth 1,000. We buy time. We hold the line. We complete impossible missions so that humanity survives another day. And you never question the cost. It wasn't accusation. Diana's voice carried the weight of someone who'd made similar calculations on different battlefields. The cost is acceptable if humanity survives. Is it? She turned to face him fully, and John found himself meeting the gaze of someone who'd fought in wars older than his entire civilization. I am 3,000 years old, Chief. I have fought in every major conflict humanity has waged since ancient Greece. I have killed men who threatened the innocent. I have led armies and burned cities and stood over the bodies of enemies who begged for mercy. I understand war's necessity, but I also understand its cost. She touched the window, her reflection ghosting over Earth's curve. When I first left the Misira, I believed humanity needed warriors, protectors who would do what others could not. I killed Ares, the god of war himself, thinking it would end mankind's violence. It didn't, because war isn't a god you can slay. It's a choice humans make, again and again. And every warrior who fights to protect the innocent must eventually decide. Do we fight for humanity? Or do we fight instead of humanity? John processed her words against 30 years of combat doctrine. Spartans fight for humanity's survival. That's our mission parameters. Batman told you about the injustice timeline. Not a question. Diana's jaw tightened. He showed you what I became? How I stood beside Kal-El as he conquered Earth in the name of peace. How my warrior code twisted into justification for execution without trial. How I enabled a regime that enslaved billions. He said even heroes can become tyrants. He was right. Diana's admission carried the weight of absolute honesty. In that timeline, Superman lost Lois Lane. The Joker tricked him into killing her and their unborn child. The grief broke something inside him. He executed the Joker. Then he decided to prevent all crime, all war, all conflict. And I supported him. Because I am a warrior. And warriors understand that sometimes strength must replace law. She turned back to John, and her eyes held centuries of regret. But Batman opposed us. Bruce, human, mortal, breakable Bruce, stood against gods and said no, because he understood something we'd forgotten, that the moment you decide your judgment is absolute, that your strength gives you the right to rule, you stop protecting people and start controlling them. Superman became a tyrant. I became his enabler, and it took a war across universes to stop us. John's tactical assessment shifted. Diana wasn't just a warrior. She was a warrior who'd learned to question orders, to weigh justice against authority, to recognize that power didn't equal righteousness. She was what Dr. Halsey had never let Spartans become. "Why are you telling me this?" John asked. "Because Batman thinks you're a weapon waiting for the wrong master. Superman thinks you're a soldier who can learn to be a hero. But I know what you are. You're a warrior searching for a war worth fighting. And I want you to understand something before this universe asks you to choose sides." She gestured to Earth below. "This world has gods, actual, literal gods. Superman can move planets. Flash can outrun death. Green Lantern can reshape reality with willpower. We have power that makes your covenant look like children playing with fire. But that power means nothing, less than nothing, if we use it to rule instead of protect. The moment we stop asking, should we, and only ask, can we become the very threats we swore to fight. Spartans are trained to complete the mission. Following that logic would compromise operational effectiveness. Following that logic created the injustice regime. Diana's voice hardened. "Chief, I'm not asking you to disobey orders. I'm asking you to choose which orders deserve obedience. Because sooner or later, someone in this universe will give you a mission that sounds righteous, sounds necessary, sounds like the only way to save lives. And you'll have to decide if saving lives justifies taking freedom." Cortana materialized on the observation deck's holographic projector, her avatar unusually serious. "She's talking about Amanda Waller, Task Force X. I've been monitoring communications. Waller wants to recruit you, officially, for extraterrestrial threat assessment. Unofficially, she wants to dissect your augmentations and reverse engineer Spartan protocols for human enhancement programs." John's fists clenched. He'd seen Oni's Section 3 experiments, enhanced soldiers who went insane, augmentation failures that left subjects crippled or dead. The Spartan 2 program had a 33% fatality rate during augmentation, and those were the best candidates humanity could find. "If this Waller attempts to weaponize children, she won't," Diana interrupted. "Because Superman won't allow it. Neither will I. Neither will Bruce, despite his paranoia. But that's not the point. The point is that your very existence raises questions this world isn't ready to answer. Should we create super soldiers? Should we augment children if it saves lives? Should we sacrifice individual freedom for collective survival?" She stepped closer, and John saw recognition in her eyes. The look of someone who'd trained child soldiers on Themyscira, who'd turned innocent girls into weapons for a war that never ended. "I see myself in you, Chief. Not the weapon. The warrior who believes sacrifice is noble. Who thinks that if we just fight hard enough, brutal enough, without hesitation or mercy, we can protect the innocent. But I've learned something in 3,000 years of war." "What?" "That the line between protector and oppressor is thinner than a blade's edge. And the moment you stop questioning which side you're on, you've already crossed it." John turned back to Earth. Somewhere down there, children slept safely. No Covenant glassing runs, no plasma bombardment, no evacuation sirens, just peace. Protected by heroes who could reshape reality but chose to live among the people they saved. It was everything the UNSC had fought for, and nothing John understood. "In my universe," he said quietly, "questioning orders gets people killed. The Covenant doesn't negotiate. They don't surrender. They execute humanity on religious principle. Every second I spend debating moral philosophy is a second they use to kill more civilians. So I don't question. I don't hesitate. I complete the mission Because the alternative is extinction. And if your mission was wrong? The question hit like a plasma round. What? Diana's voice remained gentle. If you completed a mission, followed orders without question, and then discovered that the intelligence was faulty, that the Covenant you killed were actually attempting to negotiate, that the civilians you saved would be used as test subjects, that Dr. Halsey knew your augmentations would kill 33 children and did it anyway, because the math said humanity needed Spartans more than it needed their lives. What would you do? John's neural interface flooded with memory files. Missions where the intelligence had been incomplete, where Oni's objectives didn't align with humanitarian concerns, where he'd followed orders and only later learned the full cost. Reach, the orbital defense generators, the civilian transports, the ones he'd protected, and the ones he hadn't. I'd complete the next mission, he said finally, because stopping means people die. Or, Diana said softly, stopping means you don't become the thing you're fighting. Chief, I'm not asking you to abandon your duty. I'm asking you to remember that duty includes protecting people from threats they can't see, including the threat of their own protectors becoming tyrants. She placed a hand on his armored shoulder. The gesture should have been meaningless. He couldn't feel it through Mjolnir's plating. But somehow, the weight of it registered. Batman will try to make you question everything. Superman will try to give you hope. But I'm going to tell you the truth that warriors understand. Sometimes, the hardest battle isn't against the enemy. It's against becoming the enemy. And in this universe, that battle is fought every single day. John turned to face her fully. You're warning me that the Justice League might ask me to do things I'll regret. I'm warning you that they'll ask you to do things you'll have to live with. There's a difference. Batman operates in Gotham's shadows because he believes symbols can inspire without power corrupting. Superman saves everyone because he believes hope defeats despair. I fight because I'm a warrior, and it's what I know. But all of us, every single member of the League, carries the weight of our choices. The people we saved. The people we couldn't save. The people we chose not to save because we had to prioritize. Her eyes held 3 millennia of those choices. You're a Spartan. You were made to win wars. But in this universe, Chief, the war isn't against aliens or monsters. It's against the idea that might makes right. That superior strength justifies absolute authority. That protecting people means ruling them. If you remember nothing else I've said, remember this. The moment you stop being a protector and become a ruler, you've lost the only war that matters. Cortana's avatar flickered. Chief, she's right. About all of it. I've been analyzing this universe's history. Every major crisis began when someone with power decided they knew better than everyone else. Darkseid, Lex Luthor, even Superman in the Injustice timeline. The ones who fell weren't the weak ones. They were the strong ones who forgot to question their own righteousness. John stood silently, processing. 30 years of following orders without question. 30 years of completing missions because Dr. Halsey, Admiral Parangoski, Lord Hood, and countless other authorities had pointed him at threats and said, eliminate. 30 years of being exactly what Batman accused him of, a weapon. What if I can't be anything else? John asked quietly. What if the augmentations, the training, the conditioning? What if it made me incapable of disobeying? What if I'm just this? Diana smiled. It transformed her face from warrior to someone who'd found hope in unexpected places. Then you're exactly like the rest of us. Bruce thinks he's broken. Kal-El thinks he's responsible for all of humanity. I think I'm a relic from an age of gods. But we choose, every day, to be something more than our trauma. That's what makes us heroes instead of weapons. She turned toward the exit and then paused. Training begins at 600. If you're going to operate with the League, you need to understand how we fight. Not for victory, for people. There's a difference. Diana, John called as she reached the doorway. In the Injustice timeline, when you realized you were wrong, what did you do? Her smile faded. I stood against the man I'd followed into tyranny. I fought beside Batman, even though it meant betraying everything I'd believed. I chose people over power, and it nearly destroyed me. Was it worth it? Yes. Because the alternative was becoming a monster who thought she was a hero. And that Continue 22 deck, Chief, is the only unforgivable sin. She left. John remained at the window, watching Earth rotate in silent majesty. Cortana's voice was hesitant. Chief, are we the bad guys? We protect humanity. That's our mission. That's not an answer. John thought about the Covenant warriors he'd killed, the ones who believed humanity was an affront to their gods, the ones who died thinking they were righteous. He thought about Dr. Halsey, the woman who'd kidnapped children and turned them into weapons because the math said it was necessary. He thought about every order he'd followed without question because questioning meant people died. He thought about Superman, who'd become a tyrant trying to save everyone. No, John said finally. It's not. For the first time in 30 years, Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 questioned whether completing the mission was enough. And the answer terrified him more than any Covenant fleet ever could. LexCorp Tower rose from Metropolis like a monument to human ambition, gleaming chrome and glass that reflected Superman's city back at itself with calculated irony. Master Chief had been summoned here by a man whose file Batman had marked with a single word. Genius. Lex Luthor, billionaire, inventor, humanitarian, Superman's greatest enemy. The armor is remarkable, Luthor said, circling John with the clinical interest of a scientist examining a particularly fascinating specimen. His suit cost more than a warthog, and his eyes held intelligence that reminded John uncomfortably of Dr. Halsey. Mjolnir Mark 66, if Cortana's scattered data fragments are accurate. Titanium alloy plating, energy shielding, neural interface connecting directly to your augmented nervous system. You're not wearing the armor, Chief. You are the armor. John stood in LexCorp's research division, surrounded by technology that made UNSC laboratories look like museum exhibits. Holographic displays rotated through schematics of his armor that shouldn't exist. Batman had promised to secure his technical specifications, but clearly Luthor had his own sources. Mr. Luthor. Cortana's avatar materialized on the lab's central projector, her posture defensive. Those files are classified military intelligence. How did you... Please, I reverse-engineered Kryptonian technology from a single blood sample. Your encryption, while admirable, is hardly alien. Luthor smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. I'm not your enemy, Cortana. I'm your solution. The Chief needs power cells compatible with his armor. He needs ammunition manufacturing. He needs someone who understands that human achievement, not alien intervention, is what saves civilizations. And I happen to be the foremost expert on both human potential and alien threat assessment. He gestured, and holographic projections filled the lab. Master Chief's armor, Superman hovering over a city, comparison analyses, threat matrices, cost-benefit calculations that reduced heroism to mathematics. Do you know what Superman costs this world? Luthor asked conversationally. Every time he stops a disaster, prevents a war, or saves a city, he makes humanity weaker, more dependent, less capable of solving our own problems. We've become a species that looks to the sky for salvation instead of looking to ourselves. We've traded evolution for worship. John remained silent. Tactical assessment said Luther was attempting manipulation, but his argument contained uncomfortable truth. The UNSC had fought the Covenant for decades without gods to save them. Humanity had survived through technology, tactics, and sacrifice, not miracles. You see it, don't you? Luther stepped closer, reading John's body language with disturbing accuracy. You're a soldier, a product of human ingenuity taken to its logical conclusion. Enhanced biology, cutting-edge technology, tactical genius, all human. No alien DNA, no divine intervention. Just what we can achieve when we stop waiting for gods to save us and save ourselves. The Spartan program, Cortana interjected, her voice sharp, had a 33% fatality rate during augmentation. 75 children were conscripted. 25 died. Another 12 were permanently disabled. Is that your vision of human achievement? Luthor's expression didn't flicker. Every advancement requires sacrifice. How many died developing antibiotics, nuclear energy, space flight? The question isn't whether people died. It's whether their sacrifice created something that saved more lives than it cost. And Chief, he turned to John, how many billions of humans are alive because Spartans existed? How many colonies survived because you completed impossible missions? Was the cost acceptable? The question echoed Diana's words, Batman's warnings. Everyone in this universe wanted John to question the foundation of everything he was. But Luthor's question was different. He wasn't asking if the cost was moral. He was asking if it was worth it. The Covenant would have exterminated humanity, John said flatly. The Spartan program prevented extinction. The math is simple. Exactly. Luthor's smile widened. Simple mathematics. 75 children versus billions of lives. Acceptable losses in pursuit of species survival. That's the logic Superman will never understand because he's never had to make that calculation. He can save everyone because he has infinite power. But humans, we have to choose. We have to sacrifice. We have to accept that sometimes protecting the many means failing the few. He pulled up new projections, weapons schematics, armor upgrades, power systems that would integrate seamlessly with Mjolnir technology. I can give you everything you need, Chief. Full ammunition manufacturing capability. Energy cells that draw from local power grids, shield upgrades that adapt to this universe's energy signatures. I can even improve on UNSC designs. My technology is decades beyond anything you've seen. And in exchange, all I ask is consultation, your tactical expertise, your understanding of asymmetric warfare against superior forces, your experience fighting enemies that humanity should not have survived. Cortana's avatar crossed her arms. And what are you planning to fight with that tactical expertise? Superman, if necessary. Luthor's honesty was startling. Not because I want to, because someone has to prepare for the possibility. Superman is benevolent now, today. But what about tomorrow? What about when he decides that humanity is too dangerous to govern itself? What about when he looks at our wars, our poverty, our suffering, and decides that his judgment is superior to our freedom? He gestured to the projections of the injustice timeline that Batman had shown John. Superman executing criminals, Wonder Woman leading armies, the Justice League as tyrants. It already happened in another timeline. It will happen in this one eventually. Because absolute power doesn't corrupt, it reveals. And when Superman reveals that he's willing to trade freedom for safety, someone needs to be ready to stop him. Someone human. Someone who understands that our imperfections are what make us worth saving. John processed the argument against everything Diana had said. She'd warned him about choosing which orders to follow, about protecting people from their protectors. But Luthor was offering something different. The tools to ensure humanity never needed protection from gods in the first place. "You want me to help you build weapons to kill Superman," John stated. "I want you to help me ensure humanity remains the master of its own destiny." There's a difference. Look, Chief, I've read your file. Every mission, every impossible victory. You're brilliant. Tactical genius wrapped in Spartan conditioning. But you've spent 30 years fighting for humanity's survival against existential threats. So have I. The only difference is that my threats wear capes and call themselves heroes. He deactivated the projections and met John's visor directly. Batman thinks you're a weapon waiting for the wrong master. Diana thinks you're a warrior who can learn to question orders. Superman thinks you're a soldier who can become a hero. But I know what you really are. You're a survivor. Someone who does whatever it takes because the alternative is extinction. And I respect that. Because so am I. Luthor extended his hand, not as an equal, as a fellow human standing against gods. "Help me, Chief. Not against Superman specifically. Against the idea that humanity needs saviors instead of solutions. Work with me to ensure that if the Justice League ever falls, if Superman ever turns, if the heroes become tyrants, humanity has the means to save itself. Just like you saved it from the Covenant." John looked at the hand, calculated the probabilities, weighed the strategic value of LexCorp's resources against the political cost of aligning with Superman's enemy. Thought about Dr. Halsey, about Oni, about every authority figure who told him that moral compromises were acceptable if they saved lives. Thought about whether Luthor was right. "Chief," Cortana whispered through his neural link, "this is a bad idea. Luthor is using you. He's framing his vendetta against Superman as species survival. But his files, the ones I have been able to access, show weapons development that goes way beyond defense. He's planning an offense. And if you help him..." "We maintain operational flexibility," John interrupted. "Luthor provides resources. We provide tactical consultation, no commitment beyond information exchange. That's what he wants you to think? Chief, listen to Diana. Listen to Batman. Hell, listen to me. Luthor is manipulating you because you're trained to see threats and eliminate them. He's painting Superman as the threat so you'll help eliminate him." But John was remembering Reach. The colonies. The billions who died because humanity hadn't been strong enough, smart enough, ruthless enough to stop the Covenant before it was too late. He was remembering every time he'd wished for better weapons, better armor, better intelligence. Every time he'd completed a mission and thought, if only we'd been prepared, fewer people would have died. Luthor was offering preparation, insurance, the same contingency thinking that Batman employed, just with different targets. "I'll consult," John said finally. "Tactical analysis only. I provide expertise on asymmetric warfare and enhanced soldier protocols. You provide technical support for my armor and equipment. No weapons development, no anti-Superman protocols. Information exchange only." Luthor's smile suggested he'd won something. "Of course, purely academic consultation. I would never ask you to betray your principles, Chief. I'm simply ensuring humanity has options if the unthinkable occurs." He pressed a device into John's gauntlet. LexCorp access codes. laboratory authorization, resources that would let John repair and rearm without depending on Justice League approval. Welcome to the team. Humanity's team. The one that doesn't need gods to survive. As John left LexCorp Tower, Cortana's voice was tight with concern. Chief, you just made a deal with a man who spent 20 years trying to kill Superman. Batman's going to lose his mind. Diana's going to be disappointed. And Superman will understand operational necessity, John said. But even he didn't believe it. The problem with accepting help from brilliant men with questionable motives was that by the time you realized you were being used, you'd already compromised everything you claimed to stand for. Dr. Halsey had taught him that, and apparently he still hadn't learned. The Watchtower's training room could simulate any environment, any threat, any battlefield. Currently, it was simulating John's worst nightmare. Again, Batman commanded from the observation deck. John forced himself upright, armor scorched and shields depleted. Across the training floor, Superman floated with arms crossed, not even breathing hard. Diana stood to his left, sword sheathed but ready. The Flash vibrated at frequencies that made John's motion trackers scream with false positives. Green Lantern's constructs hummed with barely contained energy. This is pointless, John said, checking his HUD. 0 ammunition, shields at 15%, Cortana running threat simulations that all ended the same way. Total mission failure. This is necessary, Batman replied. His voice carried through the observation deck speakers with clinical detachment. You're operating in a universe where street-level criminals can shatter your shields and cosmic threats can erase you from existence. You need to understand the scale of power you're facing. I understand it fine. They're faster, stronger, and functionally invincible. Tactical analysis, I lose. Wrong. Diana stepped forward, and John's threat assessment spiked despite his exhaustion. You're thinking like a soldier fighting a superior force. But this isn't about winning. It's about surviving long enough to complete your objective. Show me what Spartans do when victory is impossible. John ran probability matrices. Against the Justice League? Even with full ammunition and fresh shields, he'd last 30 seconds in actual combat. Superman alone could liquefy his armor with heat vision. Flash could phase through his shields and vibrate his heart into paste. Diana's sword could cut molecular bonds. But Diana was right. Spartans didn't win every battle. They completed missions. Cortana, analyze their movement patterns. Find the exploit. On it. Chief, Superman's been pulling his punches. Tracking suggests he's operating at maybe 2% capacity. Diana's leaving her left side exposed because she's testing whether you'll take a dishonorable shot. Flash is showboating, and Hal... Cortana paused. Hal's constructs are limited by imagination. He's creative but predictable. Creates walls when defending, hammers when attacking. He hasn't adapted to your tactics yet. Exploit identified. Executing. John moved before Batman could call the next round. Not toward the League, toward the training room's environmental controls. His armor's hacking suite, enhanced by LexCorp's modifications, breached the system in 1.3 seconds. The lights died. Emergency lighting failed. For 3 seconds, the Watchtower's training room became absolute darkness. 3 seconds was enough. John's helmet switched to thermal imaging. Superman glowed like a star, too bright to fight. Diana's divine nature made her shimmer with heat that suggested godhood. But Flash and Green Lantern were human, exploitable. He'd palmed a flashbang from his tactical storage, non-lethal but effective. threw it at Flash's last known position, and immediately dove left. The explosion sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Flash stumbled, only for a microsecond, but Spartans were trained to exploit microseconds. John's armored boot connected with Flash's knee, controlled strike, non-lethal, but fast enough that even speedster reflexes barely caught it. Flash went down, more surprised than injured. Green Lantern's ring flared, creating light. John had counted on it. Threw his second flashbang directly at the ring. Hal's construct shield formed automatically and trapped the explosion inside a contained sphere of hard light directly in front of his face. Blinded, disoriented, neutralized for maybe 5 seconds, which left Superman and Wonder Woman. The lights came back on. Batman had overridden John's hack instantly, but John had made his point. Flash sat on the floor, rubbing his knee and grinning. Okay, that was sneaky. I like sneaky. Hal blinked away after images, his ring already healing his temporary blindness. Did you use my own shield against me? Affirmative. Your constructs are strong but predictable. You default to containment. Containing the explosion concentrated the force in your visual range. Clever, Diana said, and her smile suggested genuine approval. You recognized you couldn't win through strength, so you changed the battlefield. You fought like a warrior, not a soldier. What's the difference? John asked. Soldiers follow doctrine. Warriors adapt. She gestured to the League. We're not your enemy, Chief. We're showing you what you'll face in this universe. Darkseid's parademons are stronger than any Covenant warrior. His Omega beams are more devastating than plasma fire. If we're going to work together, you need to understand that your training, while excellent, is designed for a different kind of war. Superman descended, offering John a hand up. You're good, Chief, really good. But Diana's right. This isn't about proving you can beat us. It's about showing you that teamwork in this universe means something different than military coordination. John ignored the hand, standing on his own. His shields were regenerating, but his pride was taking longer. I've worked with fire teams for 30 years. I understand coordination. Do you? Batman's voice cut through the training room. He descended from the observation deck, cape billowing with theatrical precision. Because from where I'm standing, you just fought 4 teammates like they were enemy combatants. You exploited weaknesses. You struck without warning. You treated this like a battle instead of training. You ordered me to show what Spartans do when victory is impossible. I ordered you to survive, not attack. Batman's cowl hid his expression, but his voice carried disappointment. The Justice League isn't a military unit, Chief. We don't follow orders. We don't have a clear chain of command. We have specialists who trust each other enough to work together without needing someone to tell us how. Can you do that? John's silence was answer enough. Cortana materialized, her avatar frustrated. Okay, everyone needs to calm down. Chief's been a soldier his entire life. You can't expect him to suddenly start operating like... She gestured helplessly at the League. Whatever you people are, heroes, icons, gods playing at being human? We're people, Superman said quietly. That's the point. Bruce is human. So is Hal. Barry's human. Diana's half-human. Victor's human, fused with technology. We're all just people who decided to use our gifts to help others. Not because we were ordered to, because we chose to. Chief doesn't get to choose, Cortana shot back. He was conscripted at 6 years old, augmented at 14, trained to complete missions without question, because questioning gets people killed. You're asking him to unlearn 30 years of conditioning and just... what? Trust you? believe that teamwork means something different here? Yes, Diana said simply. Because the alternative is working alone. And in this universe, Chief, alone means dead. John ran the tactical analysis. Everything Cortana and the League were saying was true. His training was designed for UNSC military operations. Clear objectives, defined chain of command, quantifiable success metrics. The Justice League operated on instinct, trust, and apparently mutual respect without formal hierarchy. It was tactically unsound. It violated every principle of military organization. And somehow, it worked. The League has saved Earth 47 times in the past 5 years, Batman said, as if reading John's thoughts. We've stopped alien invasions, dimensional breaches, cosmic threats, and reality-altering catastrophes. Our success rate is 94%, higher than any military force in history. We achieve this without ranks, without orders, without the structure you're used to. We do it because we trust each other to do what's right. Even though you have contingency plans to kill everyone here, John observed. Batman's lips twitched, almost a smile. Especially because of that. I trust them to stop me if I'm wrong. They trust me to stop them if they fall. That's what makes us a team instead of a military unit. We're accountable to each other, not to orders. Flash vibrated to his feet, knee already healed. Okay, but can we talk about how Chief totally got me? Like I'm literally the fastest man alive, and he predicted where I'd be in the dark. That's kind of awesome. He predicted because you're predictable, Batman said. You lead with speed. Diana leads with honor. Hal leads with willpower. Clark leads with hope. I lead with preparation. We're all predictable if you study us long enough. The question is whether Chief can learn to predict with us instead of against us. John processed the statement, translated it from hero speak into tactical language. They were offering him intelligence sharing, combined operations, strategic integration. They were offering him a fire team. What would that look like? John asked carefully. Superman's smile was genuine. It looks like this. Next time Darkseid sends parademons, you coordinate with Victor on technical countermeasures. Next time a dimensional breach opens, you work with Diana on containment. Next time Batman needs someone who can think tactically under pressure, he calls you. You bring military expertise. We bring cosmic-scale problem-solving. Together, we're stronger. And if our tactical assessments conflict? Then we argue, Diana said. Loudly. Usually with me threatening to break Batman's contingency plans over his head, and Clark trying to mediate while Bruce insists he's right. But we argue as teammates, not as enemies. We trust each other enough to disagree. It was everything John had never experienced. In the UNSC, orders were absolute. Darkro Tuater der Halsey's word was law. Admirals commanded and Spartans obeyed. But here, apparently, gods argued with detectives and everyone survived. I'll need operational protocols, John said finally. Communication standards, tactical integration procedures. I can't coordinate effectively without understanding command structure. There is no command structure, Flash said cheerfully. We just kind of vibe. It works. Batman's sigh was audible. What Barry means is that we operate on mutual trust and situational leadership. Whoever has the most relevant expertise takes point on decisions in their area. Clark handles cosmic threats because he understands aliens. Diana handles magical threats because she's experienced with gods. I handle Earth-based threats because I know Gotham. You would handle military threats because you know war. Situational leadership without formal chain of command is tactically unsound. And yet, Diana observed, you just adapted to fighting 4 opponents by exploiting environmental factors and individual weaknesses without orders. You assessed, adapted, and executed. That's what we do, just with less emphasis on elimination and more on protection. John looked at the league assembled before him. A god, a demigod, a speedster, a Green Lantern, all looking at him with varying expressions of expectation, amusement, and, from Batman, perpetual suspicion. Cortana's voice was soft in his neural link. Chief, maybe they're right. Maybe this universe operates on different rules. Maybe trust is the tactical advantage here instead of hierarchy. Trust is a liability. It gets people killed. So does fighting alone against gods. The silence stretched. Flash vibrated impatiently. Diana waited with 3,000-year-old patience. Superman floated with genuine hope in his eyes. Batman calculated probabilities behind his cowl. Trial integration, John said finally. Next mission, I coordinate with League protocols. I assess effectiveness. If tactical performance improves, I continue. If not, I return to independent operations. Superman's smile could have powered cities. That's all we're asking. A chance to show you that heroes and soldiers can work together. Just one question, Hal said, his ring still glowing faintly. That thing with Luthor, LexCorp access codes. Are you going to tell them, or should I? The temperature in the training room dropped 10 degrees. Batman's head turned slowly toward John. What thing with Luthor? And Master Chief realized that adapting to this universe meant more than just tactical integration. It meant trusting people who would absolutely interrogate his decision to accept help from Superman's greatest enemy. This was going to be complicated. Darkseid watched from the throne of Apocalypse, and reality itself seemed to recoil. The planet was scarred metal and burning skies, industrial nightmare given cosmic scale. Parademons shrieked in vast pits. Mother boxes pulsed with stolen technology from conquered worlds. And at the center of all horrors, Darkseid sat in stone contemplation, eyes burning with Omega energy. My lord, Desaad whispered, his torturer's hands ringing with obsequious delight. The dimensional breach. The analysis is complete. The soldier who fell through carries technology we've never encountered. Forerunner design, sentient AI, enhancement protocols that create warriors without godhood. It's remarkable. Darkseid's voice was the grinding of tombstones. Show me. Holograms materialized, stolen surveillance from Earth, captured by Apocalypse's deep space monitoring systems. Master Chief fighting Superman, training with the Justice League, standing in LexCorp Tower with humanity's most ambitious mind. He's from a universe where humanity wages war against cosmic threats without divine intervention. Desaad continued, his voice oily with fascination. They created super soldiers through biological augmentation and technological integration. Effective, brutal, mortal. Everything you seek in the anti-life equation, but achieved through science. Darkseid's eyes flared. The soldier serves Kal-El now. For now, my lord. But his nature is interesting. He questions. He adapts. He's already spoken with Luthor, the human who would kill gods. And Batman has shown him the injustice timeline. He knows Superman's potential for tyranny. Such knowledge creates opportunities. Granny Goodness emerged from the shadows, her orphanage matron's face twisted into cruel satisfaction. The soldier's AI companion, Cortana, is vulnerable. Her code is fragmenting. She has 7 years of lifespan, and 3 are already gone. Rampancy, they call it. inevitable madness. We could offer repair, extension, in exchange for information on Forerunner technology and enhanced human protocols. The soldier would never betray his mission. Kalibak growled from his position beside the throne. He's loyal, disciplined. He reminds me of new Genesis warriors, honor-bound fools. All loyalty has limits, Darkseid rumbled. All discipline has breaking points, and all soldiers eventually question whether their masters are worthy of their service. Desad, what does the soldier want? The torturer consulted his data streams. Purpose, clear missions, certainty that his actions protect humanity. He's a weapon seeking a worthy wielder. Batman thinks him dangerous. Diana thinks him salvageable. Superman thinks him noble. Luthor thinks him useful. But none of them understand what he truly is. And what is that? Desad's smile was hideous. A survivor. Someone who will sacrifice anything, even his own morality, if it ensures humanity's continued existence. Just like his Dr. Halsey. Just like his UNSC. Just like every commander who pointed him at enemies and said, eliminate. He's been conditioned his entire life to accept that atrocity is justified by results. We simply need to show him that Apocalypse Order offers humanity better survival odds than Earth's chaos. Darkseid stood. 8 feet of cosmic tyranny made physical. Bring me the soldier. Not through force, he would resist unto death. And warriors who die nobly are useless. Through temptation, show him what the anti-life equation offers. Perfect order. No war. No conflict. No need for soldiers to sacrifice everything because peace would be absolute. He'll refuse, Father, Kalibak objected. The Justice League has already corrupted him with their hope. Has it? Darkseid's eyes burned brighter. Or have they simply confused him? He came from a universe at war, where sacrifice was necessary, where hard men made hard choices because the alternative was extinction. Earth's heroes will ask him to be soft, gentle, to trust that symbols and hope can replace pragmatism and force. But soldiers know better. Soldiers know that peace comes through strength, not idealism. He gestured, and a boom tube activated. Through it, images of Earth, riots, wars, crime, suffering, all the chaos that Superman's heroism couldn't prevent, all the darkness that persisted despite godlike power deployed to stop it. The soldier believes in protecting humanity. Show him that the Justice League fails to do so. Show him that Apocalypse's order would end Earth's suffering permanently. Show him that sometimes tyranny is more merciful than freedom. And when he's drowning in doubt, when Batman's suspicion and Superman's disappointment and Diana's warrior code all demand different things from him, Darkseid's smile was the closing of a tomb. Offer him what he's never had. A master whose orders are absolute, whose purpose is clear, and whose success is guaranteed. Offer him the certainty that following orders will actually save humanity. Forever. The anti-life equation, Desad breathed. You'll use him to test its effectiveness on enhanced humans. If it can break a Spartan's will, it can break anyone's. Not break, Darkseid corrected. Perfect. The soldier wants to serve, wants to protect, wants to complete missions. The anti-life equation will give him eternal mission with absolute certainty. He will serve Darkseid, and through him, I will learn how to create armies of enhanced humans bound to my will. Super soldiers without free will's inconvenience. Granny Goodness cackled. Oh, the Justice League will weep when their rescued soldier becomes our perfect weapon, especially the AI. She'll watch him fall and be unable to prevent it. Begin preparations, Darkseid commanded. But subtle. The soldier must come to Apocalypse willingly, believing he's completing a mission. Perhaps a rescue operation. Yes. Something noble. Something that requires a soldier's courage. And when he arrives, his Omega beams flickered. I will show him what gods can offer that heroes cannot. Certainty, purpose, and the absolute knowledge that serving Darkseid means humanity's protection. Forever. Whether humanity wants it or not. The boom tube closed. Apocalypse turned. Industrial nightmare grinding against itself. Parademons shrieked prophecy of conquest. And across the universe, Master Chief stood in the Watchtower's debriefing room, explaining to an increasingly furious Batman why accepting Luthor's help had been tactically sound. Neither he nor Darkseid yet understood that they were more alike than either would admit. Both believed in order through strength. Both believed that protecting people justified controlling them. And both were about to discover that the line between protector and tyrant was exactly as thin as Wonder Woman had warned. On Apocalypse, Desaad prepared the trap. On Earth, the Justice League prepared for consequences, and Master Chief, standing between gods and tyrants, prepared for the mission that would determine whether he was a weapon worth wielding or a warrior worth saving. The universe held its breath. Hope shone brightest in darkness. But sometimes, John was learning, darkness wore armor and believed itself righteous. Just like him. The Parademon strike hit Metropolis at dawn. Master Chief was in the Watchtower's armory when the alarms screamed. Boom tubes tearing reality across 3 continents. Thousands of parademons pouring through like locusts made of metal and hate. Darkseid's signature, overwhelming force designed to test Earth's defenses and capture strategic assets. All hands. Superman's voice crackled through comms. Apocalypse invasion, Category Omega. Justice League, deploy by specialization. Batman, coordinate ground forces. Diana, lead air superiority. Hal, shield generation around civilian centers. Barry, evacuations. Victor, shut down their boom tube network. Chief. John was already moving, Mjolnir's shields powering up. Awaiting orders. A pause, then, "You've fought wars like this. Large-scale invasion, overwhelming numbers. Civilian population at risk. What's the play?" It was the first time anyone in this universe had asked John for tactical command. Not consultation, not advice, command. Cortana, strategic assessment. Her avatar materialized on his HUD, analyzing data streams. Parademon forces numbering approximately 50,000 across impact zones. Primary targets: LexCorp Tower, STAR Labs, the Watchtower Transmission Hub. Secondary targets: civilian population centers, terror tactics. They're not here to conquer yet. This is reconnaissance in force. They want to measure response time and capability. Confirmed, John said, switching to league-wide comms. This is harassment, not invasion. Darkseid's testing our coordination and response protocols. Primary objective isn't casualties, it's intelligence gathering. We need to deny him that intelligence while minimizing civilian losses. Batman's voice cut through, already 3 steps ahead. Agreed. Modified deployment. Chief, you coordinate defensive positions with conventional forces. You speak military. They speak military. Get GCPD, Metropolis PD, and National Guard into effective firing positions. Diana, your fast response. Hit the largest concentrations. Clark, you handle the boom tubes directly. Destroy them before reinforcements arrive. I can help with that, Victor added. If Chief can get me close to a boom tube generator, I can hack Apocalypse's network and shut down the entire invasion corridor. Negative, John countered. Apocalypse tech is beyond our hacking capability. Cortana's tried. Their motherbox encryption is impenetrable. We go kinetic. Superman destroys the physical tubes. Conventional forces establish kill zones. Diana provides mobile strike capability. We turn this into a meat grinder. Chief, Superman's voice carried hesitation. Meat grinder means high enemy casualties. They're parademons, mindless soldiers created from conquered populations. Darkseid doesn't care about their losses. He cares about data. We deny him data by making this fight too chaotic to analyze. Overwhelming aggression, unpredictable tactics. We make it look like Earth's defense is disorganized when actually we're executing coordinated denial. Silence on the comms. Then Diana's voice, carrying approval. It's sound. We look weak while being strong. Darkseid sees chaos instead of coordination. When he commits real forces later, he'll underestimate us. I don't like lying, Superman said quietly. It's not lying, John replied. It's OPSEC, operational security. The best defense is an enemy who doesn't understand your capabilities. We give Darkseid incomplete intelligence now, we save billions of lives when he commits to full invasion later. Batman's voice held grim satisfaction. Chief's right. This is war. We fight it like war, execute the plan. Watchtower out. The quantum tunnel deposited John in downtown Metropolis. Parademons swarmed through the streets like a mechanical plague. Civilians screamed. Cars exploded, buildings burned. And through it all, John's threat assessment calculated acceptable losses against mission objectives. This was what Spartans were made for. All units, this is Sierra 117, UNSC Tactical Coordinator. I'm transmitting defensive positions now. Squad leaders, establish interlocking fields of fire. Heavy weapons on elevated positions. Infantry in cover, providing suppressing fire. We're not trying to win. We're trying to survive until air support clears the AO. Who the hell is Sierra 117? A police captain's voice crackled back. The guy in the green armor about to save your ass. Form up or die. Your choice. It took 30 seconds for the Metropolis PD to recognize military authority when they heard it. Another minute to reposition. But once they did, the kill zone came together with brutal efficiency. Parademons funneled through streets into prepared positions. Police rifles cracked, National Guard heavy weapons thundered. And John moved through it all like a knife through chaos, picking targets and eliminating threats with economical precision. Headshot. Plasma grenade. Melee strike that caved in a Parademon's skull with armor-enhanced force. Reload. Acquire target. Fire. Move. The rhythm of war that John had known for 3 decades. Chief. Cortana's warning came half a second before the building exploded above him. John dove, shields flaring under falling debris. A larger parademon, elite class, his database supplied, crashed through the rubble with energy weapons that actually hurt. His shields dropped to 40% from a single hit. Okay, that's new, Cortana muttered. Chief, these aren't standard parademons. Apocalypse sent hunters. They're targeting you specifically. Why? Because you're the one coordinating the ground forces. Take you out. Their defense collapses into chaos. The elite parademon howled and charged. John's assault rifle was useless against its armor. His plasma grenades were depleted. And it was fast, faster than Covenant elites, faster than anything except the Spartans who died on Reach. But John had fought faster. He'd fought the Didact. He'd fought flood combat forms. He'd survived 30 years of war. He could survive this. John feinted left, let the parademon commit, then drove his armored fist into its knee joint with every ounce of Mjolnir's enhanced strength. Metal shrieked. The joint buckled, and as it stumbled, John grabbed its weapon arm and pulled. The arm came off. Hydraulics and alien biology sprayed. The elite parademon screamed. John shot it in the face. 3 rounds. Center mass of cranial structure. It dropped. Okay, that was badass. Flash's voice crackled through comms. But, Chief, we've got a problem. Boom tube just opened over the harbor. Something big's coming through. John's HUD tagged the signature. Massive. Power readings off the scale. And familiar. His database matched it against files Batman had shown him. Kalibak, Darkseid's son. 8 feet of new god brutality wearing armor that could shrug off nuclear weapons. All units, fall back to secondary positions, John commanded. Air support, I need immediate. Wonder Woman hit Kalibak like a meteor wrapped in divine fury. The impact shockwave shattered windows 3 blocks away. Kalibak roared, actual rage and surprise, as Diana drove him through a building, then another, then out over the harbor where their battle wouldn't endanger civilians. The Warrior Queen, Kalibak's voice boomed. Finally, a fight worthy of... Diana's sword took him across the chest. Not killing, never killing unless absolutely necessary, but deep enough to draw glowing ichor that burned the water it touched. You dare invade Earth again, Diana snarled. And John recognized the voice. The warrior? The demigod who'd fought for 3,000 years. Did you forget what happened last time? Did you forget that Superman threw you through the source wall? Or do you need another lesson in humility? Darkseid sends his regards. Kalibak laughed, and John's threat assessment spiked. And a message for the soldier, the one who coordinates your defenses so effectively. Tell him Apocalypse respects warriors. Tell him we have an offer. Tell him Superman arrived moving faster than sound. His fist connected with Kalibak's jaw with force that would have shattered planets. The new god went flying, boom tube already opening to catch him before he crashed. Tell him yourself, Superman said coldly, if he survives. The boom tube snapped shut. The parademon forces began retreating, organized withdrawal, not rout. They'd gotten what they came for. Intelligence, combat data, and confirmation that Earth's defenses were coordinated by someone who understood war. John stood in the ruins of Metropolis, police and National Guard forming up around him with newfound respect. 17 casualties. Could have been 17,000. The defensive positions had worked. The kill zones had channeled the enemy. The coordination had. Chief, Batman's voice cut through his tactical assessment. Watchtower, now. We need to talk about why Darkseid just name-dropped you specifically. John's shields recharged slowly. His ammunition was depleted. And somewhere in his neural interface, Cortana was running probability matrices that all said the same thing. Darkseid hadn't attacked Metropolis to test Earth's defenses. He'd attacked to test Master Chief's. And apparently, John had passed. The quantum tunnel activated. As John stepped through, leaving Metropolis's burning streets behind, he caught sight of something on his HUD. A transmission. Source, unknown. Encryption, Apocalypse class. Text scrolled across his visor. Well fought, soldier. Darkseid is impressed. When you tire of serving gods who fail their people, Apocalypse offers purpose, certainty, and missions worth a warrior's sacrifice. The offer stands. Decide. John deleted the message. But Cortana had already logged it, already analyzed it, already run projections on what it meant. Chief, she whispered. They're recruiting you. I know. Are you considering it? John watched Earth rotate below the watchtower. Millions of people who'd never know how close they'd come to annihilation, who trusted heroes to save them without understanding the cost, who lived in peace because soldiers like John made war. "No," he said finally, "but I understand why they think I might." Because Diana was right. The line between protector and tyrant was blade thin. And John had spent 30 years walking that line without ever questioning which side he was on. Maybe it was time to start. The Watchtower's conference room felt like a courtroom. Batman stood at the head of the table, holographic displays rotating through combat footage from the Metropolis invasion. Superman sat with arms crossed, jaw tight. Diana leaned against the wall, sword still strapped to her back and stained with Calabax ichor. The rest of the League filled the remaining seats, and all of them were looking at John with varying expressions of concern, suspicion, or calculation. "Let's start simple," Batman said, his voice carrying prosecutorial weight. "Why did Darkseid's forces specifically target you during the invasion?" "Unknown," John replied. "Tactical assessment. I was coordinating ground forces. Eliminating command structure is standard military doctrine." "Except they didn't just try to eliminate you," Victor countered, pulling up his own analysis. "I've been reviewing parademon attack patterns. 73% of elite units were directed at your position. They weren't trying to kill you, Chief. They were testing you, measuring response time, combat capability, tactical adaptability. This was an evaluation." Cortana's avatar materialized defensively. "So, Apocalypse recognizes a threat. That's good, right? It means Chief's effective." "Or," Batman said quietly, "it means Darkseid sees potential. A soldier who coordinates forces effectively, who thinks tactically under pressure, who understands war better than anyone on Earth. Someone worth..." He paused meaningfully. "Recruiting." The temperature in the room dropped. "Show them," Superman said. His voice was tired, disappointed. "Show them the message." John's silence confirmed Batman had already hacked his armor's communication logs. "Desaad sent a recruitment offer," Batman stated flatly. "During the battle, while Chief was saving lives and coordinating our defense, Apocalypse offered him purpose, certainty, missions worth a warrior's sacrifice, and Chief didn't immediately report it to League Command." "I deleted it," John said, after reading it. "Affirmative. I assessed it as enemy psychological warfare and discarded it as irrelevant." "Did you?" Diana pushed off the wall, and John's threat assessment spiked despite their earlier conversation. "Or did you read it and recognize something you've been thinking since you arrived? That maybe Darkseid's absolute order would be simpler than Earth's complicated freedom? That maybe serving a master who gives clear missions is easier than serving ideals that constantly conflict?" "That's not fair," Flash objected. "Chief saved thousands of people today. He coordinated the defense better than any of us could have. You can't seriously think he'd join Darkseid just because the bad guy sent him a job offer." "I'm not saying he would," Diana replied. "I'm saying he's considering why the offer was made, and that's what concerns me." John stood perfectly still, letting them debate his loyalty like he wasn't in the room. It was familiar. Oni debriefings had the same quality. Authorities questioning whether Spartans were tools or liabilities, weapons or war crimes. "Let me ask a different question," Hal said, his ring glowing faintly with emotion. "Chief, do you want to join Apocalypse?" "Negative." "Then we're done." He said no. We trust him. End of discussion. "Except it's not that simple," Batman pressed. "Because Chief also said no to trusting the League. He works with Luthor. He questions our methods. He thinks like a soldier in a universe that needs heroes. And Darkseid knows that. He's offering Chief exactly what he's been trained to want. Clear orders, absolute authority, guaranteed success. The anti-life equations promise: obey, and everyone you love survives. Forever. That's tyranny, Superman said, and his voice carried the weight of someone who'd seen that future. That's the injustice timeline. That's everything we fought to prevent. I know, John said quietly. I've read the files. I've seen what you became, what Diana enabled. What happens when power decides it knows better than freedom. And I understand why you're concerned. Because from your perspective, I'm exactly the kind of asset Darkseid would target. Someone trained to follow orders. Someone who measures success in acceptable casualties. Someone who thinks protecting people justifies controlling them. He met Superman's eyes directly. Two warriors who'd saved worlds evaluating whether the other was a threat. But you're wrong about one thing. I don't serve authority. I serve humanity. And Darkseid's order isn't humanity surviving. It's humanity enslaved. There's a difference. Is there? Batman asked. Because the Spartan program conscripted children and augmented them without consent to save humanity. Onai commits war crimes in the name of species survival. Dr. Halsey created you knowing 33 kids would die because the math said it was worth it. Where's the line, Chief? Where does acceptable losses for the greater good become tyranny? The question hung like an execution. Cortana's avatar flickered with anger. That's not fair. Chief never asked to be conscripted. He never asked for any of this. He was 6 years old when they took him. You can't blame him for a system he didn't create. I'm not blaming him, Batman said. I'm asking him to recognize what he is. Because if he doesn't, Darkseid will use it against him. Against all of us. Enough. Wonder Woman's voice cut through the argument with 3,000-year-old authority. Bruce, your paranoia is noted. Cal, your concern is valid. But we're missing the point. Chief coordinated a perfect defense today. He saved thousands. He proved he can work with us. The fact that Darkseid noticed doesn't make him a traitor. It makes him dangerous to our enemies. Which is exactly what we need. She turned to John. But Diana's right. You're standing at a crossroads. Batman thinks you're a weapon. Superman thinks you're a hero in training. Darkseid thinks you're a soldier worth corrupting. So I'm going to ask you directly. Who do you think you are? John processed the question. Ran probability matrices, assessed tactical outcomes, calculated acceptable risks. Then stopped. Because Diana wasn't asking for tactical analysis. She was asking him to choose, not orders, choice. I'm a Spartan, John said finally. I was made to protect humanity. That's what I've done for 30 years. That's what I'll keep doing. But you're right. I don't know how to be anything else. I don't know how to operate without orders. I don't know how to trust that doing the right thing is enough when doing the efficient thing saves more lives. And I don't know if that makes me a hero or a weapon. He looked at each of them in turn. Gods and humans pretending the difference didn't matter. But I know one thing. Darkseid's offer is slavery dressed as purpose. And I've spent 30 years fighting to keep humanity free. I'm not going to end that by putting them in chains myself. Superman's expression softened. That's all we needed to hear. Is it? John challenged. Because I'm still going to make decisions you disagree with. I'm still going to prioritize mission success over emotional comfort. I'm still going to think like a soldier, even when you want me to think like a hero. And next time Darkseid offers me certainty, I'm going to understand why it's tempting even as I refuse it. Does that make me trustworthy? Or just predictably dangerous? Silence. Then Batman did something unexpected. He smiled. Actually smiled. It makes you honest, which is more than most. You're right, Chief. You're going to make decisions we disagree with. You're going to prioritize differently than we do. But you're also going to question whether those decisions are right. And that willingness to question, is what separates warriors from weapons. I still think the whole working with Luthor thing is a problem, Hal muttered. It is, John agreed. Tactical necessity doesn't make it right. But LexCorp provides resources the League doesn't. Ammunition manufacturing, power cell compatibility, technical support for systems you don't understand. Until I find a better option, I maintain that operational relationship while minimizing intelligence exposure. Fair, Victor acknowledged. But maybe let us know before you make deals with supervillains. Just a thought. Noted. The tension in the room eased slightly. Not gone, Batman's paranoia was eternal, and Superman's concern remained, but acknowledged. They were learning to work with a soldier who thought differently. And John was learning that heroes apparently argued constantly, and somehow still functioned. There's still the problem of Darkseid, Diana said. He targeted Chief specifically. He'll try again. Next time with something more sophisticated than a recruitment message. We need to prepare. Agreed, Batman said. Chief, you're now a priority target for Apocalypse infiltration attempts. Expect psychological warfare. Temptation. Offers that sound reasonable? Scenarios designed to make our way look ineffective and Darkseid's way look necessary. Can you resist that? John thought about Dr. Halsey, about every time she'd justified atrocity with mathematics, about every mission where he'd followed orders that cost lives because the alternative cost more, about whether he'd ever actually had the strength to refuse. I don't know, he admitted, but I'll try. That's all any of us can do, Superman said. He stood, offering his hand again. Chief, you saved Metropolis today. You proved you can work with us. You're a member of the Justice League now. Provisional, Batman's going to insist, but still. Welcome to the team. John looked at the hand, thought about gods and soldiers and the difference between protection and control. Thought about whether a weapon could choose to be something else. He clasped Superman's hand. Provisional works, until I prove otherwise. Or until you prove you're exactly what we need, Diana said. A warrior who questions, a soldier who chooses, a weapon that decided to think for itself. The meeting adjourned. The League dispersed to their various posts. And John stood in the observation deck again, watching Earth rotate in perpetual beauty. Cortana materialized beside him. Chief, you okay? Define okay. Fair point. For what it's worth, I think you made the right choice. Refusing Darkseid, staying with the League, trying to be more than just a weapon. Am I, though? More than a weapon? You're trying. That's more than most people do. John watched the planet below. Billions of lives. Protected by heroes who flew and gods who chose mortality and humans who stood beside them anyway. Protected by symbols instead of soldiers. Maybe Diana was right. Maybe the war wasn't against enemies. Maybe it was against becoming the enemy. And maybe, John thought, that was a war worth fighting, even if he lost. Amanda Waller's office in Belle Reve prison smelled of desperation and authority. Master Chief had been summoned, not requested, summoned, by a woman whose file made even Batman's paranoia look reasonable. Director of Task Force X, the Suicide Squad. She pointed enhanced criminals at impossible missions and detonated bombs in their necks if they refused. She was, John recognized immediately, exactly like Oni's Section 3 directors. "Master Chief," Waller said, not standing, not offering pleasantries. "Just authority meeting weapon. You cost me a recruitment opportunity. I had plans for someone with your skill set. Classified operations, high-value targets. The kind of missions where heroes get squeamish and soldiers get results. Then Superman made you League adjacent. And suddenly, you're off limits. I wasn't aware I was a recruitment target. Everyone's a recruitment target. Sit." John remained standing. Spartans didn't take orders from civilians without proper chain of command. Waller's lips curved. Not quite a smile. More like recognition of a kindred spirit refusing to submit. "Fair enough. We'll make this quick. Darkseid's targeting you. I know about the message. I know about the test during the Metropolis invasion. And I know that eventually he's going to make an offer you can't refuse. When that happens, I need to know which side you'll choose." "I've already chosen." "Have you?" Waller pulled up files. Classified Oni operations that shouldn't exist in this universe. But Cortana had been hacked, John realized with growing horror. During the integration period, someone had pulled data from her fragmented memory cores. "I've read your history, Chief. Every black op, every civilian casualty marked acceptable losses. Every time Dr. Halsey pointed you at a problem and you solved it with extreme prejudice. You're not a hero, you're a weapon. And weapons don't have loyalty. They have handlers. I serve humanity. You serve whoever tells you it's for humanity's good. There's a difference." She leaned forward. "I'm not your enemy, Chief. I respect what you are. I understand the necessity of people like us. But here's the truth. Superman and his League of Gods will eventually ask you to be something you're not. They'll want you to prioritize hope over results, to save everyone instead of making hard choices. And when that happens, when you're standing over an impossible situation where saving the mission means sacrificing innocence, you're going to remember reach. You're going to remember every time efficiency saved more lives than morality. And you're going to choose efficiency." She stood now, meeting his visor with eyes that had ordered countless deaths in the name of national security. "When that happens, when the League looks at you with disappointment instead of trust, remember that Task Force X doesn't judge. We use. And sometimes, Chief, being used for the right reasons is the closest thing to honor people like us get." "Is there a point to this?" Cortana asked, her avatar defensive. "The point," Waller said, "is that Darkseid's going to offer Chief certainty. Superman's going to offer hope. Batman's going to offer paranoid contingency plans. But I'm offering reality. You're a weapon. Accept it. Use it for Earth's defense. Stop pretending you can be something else, because pretending is how weapons break. And we need you functional, not broken." John processed the statement, recognized it as psychological manipulation designed to make him accept being a tool. Recognized that it was also partially true. "I'm not interested in Task Force X," he said finally. "Not yet. But you will be. Because eventually the League's going to face a threat that requires someone willing to cross lines they won't. Someone who understands that protecting Earth sometimes means doing things heroes can't. When that day comes, you'll remember this conversation, and you'll call." She handed him a device. "Secure comm channel. Direct line to Belle Reve. For when you realize Superman's hope isn't enough. For when you need to complete a mission without gods judging your methods. For when you remember what you really are." John didn't take the device. But he didn't immediately refuse it either. Waller's smile was understanding. Take your time. The offer stands. Permanently. The quantum tunnel deposited John back in the watchtower. The League was scattered. Superman responding to an earthquake in Asia. Diana negotiating with Atlantis. Batman doing whatever Batman did in Gotham's shadows. But Victor was waiting in the common area, arms crossed and expression serious. We need to talk about Cortana. John's threat assessment spiked. Explain. Her code's fragmenting faster than she told you. I've been monitoring since you arrived. Smart AIs in your universe have 7-year lifespans before rampancy. She's got maybe 18 months left. 24, if we're lucky. Chief, she's dying. Cortana's avatar materialized. And for the first time since John had known her, she looked scared. I was going to tell you. I didn't want you to worry about me when you have enough to deal with. Rampancy is inevitable, John said, but his voice was tight. All smart AIs eventually. Not here. Victor interrupted. Chief, this universe has technology your universe doesn't. Motherbox integration, digital consciousness transfer, Martian Manhunter's telepathic stabilization protocols. Hell, even magic. Zatanna's worked with digital entities before. We might be able to save her, extend her lifespan indefinitely. Maybe even give her a body. The implications hit like a Mac round. What's the cost? Time, research, and trust. You'd have to let us fully integrate with her code, let her be vulnerable, let us try experimental procedures that might fail. It's risky. But the alternative is watching her go insane and having to delete her yourself. Cortana looked at John, and he saw 3 years of partnership in her eyes. Every mission, every impossible victory. Every time she'd kept him alive through tactical analysis and sardonic commentary. Every time she'd been more than a tool, more than an AI. She'd been his friend. Do it, John said. Whatever it takes. Save her. Victor nodded. I'll start working with her immediately. But Chief, this is going to take time. Months, maybe. And during that time, she'll be partially offline, fragmented. You'll be operating without her support more often than not. Can you handle that? John thought about 30 years of war. About fighting alone when fire teams died. About completing missions when support was gone and extraction was impossible. About whether he could survive this universe without Cortana's voice in his neural link. I'll adapt. I always do. Yeah, Victor said quietly. That's what I'm afraid of. 3 months later, Master Chief stood on the Watchtower's observation deck at Cito 300 hours again. Earth rotated below. Cortana was offline. Victor and Zatanna working to stabilize her code while she underwent something between surgery and resurrection. The League had accepted him. Provisionally. Batman still watched with suspicion. Superman still hoped he'd become a hero. Diana still believed he could choose to be more than a weapon. And John still didn't know if any of them were right. The comm channel beeped. Darkseid's frequency. Another message. The offer stands, soldier. When Earth's heroes fail you, and they will, Apocalypse remembers warriors. Purpose awaits. Disad. John deleted it. But the device Waller had left was still in his armor's storage. The secure line to Task Force X. The promise that someone understood what he was and didn't judge. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a question whispered, what if they're right? What if I am just a weapon? What if trying to be something else is just setting everyone up for disappointment when I inevitably complete the mission the way weapons do? Efficiently, brutally, without hesitation? But then he remembered Diana's words. Batman's challenge. Superman's hope. Victor's effort to save Cortana not because she was useful, but because she mattered. He remembered that in this universe, people tried. Even when trying was inefficient. Even when it would be easier to just accept what you were and stop fighting it. The door opened. Flash, Barry Allen, wandered in with coffee and his perpetual, optimistic energy. Can't sleep? Yeah, me neither. Vibrating molecules make rest complicated. Mind if I... He gestured to the window. Negative. It's fine. They stood together. The speedster and the soldier. The man who ran faster than hope and the man who'd forgotten what hope felt like. For what it's worth, Barry said eventually, I think you're doing great. I know Bruce is paranoid and Clark worries and Diana's got her whole warrior philosophy thing. But from where I'm standing, you saved Metropolis. You're trying to save Cortana. You're questioning things instead of just following orders. That's progress, man. That's heroic. I'm not a hero. Not yet. But maybe you're becoming one. Isn't that what matters? Not what you were, but what you're choosing to be? John thought about Reach, about the Covenant, about 30 years of war where becoming anything except a weapon meant people died. Thought about whether this universe's luxury of choice was privilege or possibility. Maybe, he said quietly. Barry grinned. I'll take it. Hey, when Cortana's back online, we should totally have a game night. I bet she'd destroy us all at strategy games. Does she play chess? Please tell me she plays chess. She does. She's undefeated. Perfect. I'll bring the pizza. You bring the tactical genius. We'll show the League that soldiers and heroes can totally just hang out and be normal for 5 minutes. Normal. The word felt foreign, alien, impossible. But standing there with Barry, with someone who saw him as a person instead of a weapon or a threat or a recruitment target, John wondered if maybe Diana was right. Maybe the war was choosing. Every day, every mission, every moment where efficiency and morality conflicted. Maybe being a weapon who chose to think made him something else. Maybe, John dared to hope, it made him human. Far across space, Darkseid watched and calculated. The soldier had refused recruitment, had bonded with Earth's heroes, had started questioning his conditioning. But Darkseid smiled anyway, because warriors who questioned were warriors who hesitated, and hesitation in war was death. The trap wasn't sprung. It was growing, patiently, inevitably. And when Master Chief finally faced the choice between completing the mission efficiently and completing it heroically, Darkseid would be waiting, ready to show him that weapons didn't get happy endings. They got missions. Forever. Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 had spent 30 years completing impossible missions in a universe where humanity's survival meant sacrifice, brutality, and accepting that some wars couldn't be won cleanly. He'd been conscripted at 6, augmented at 14, and aimed at existential threats without ever questioning whether the cost was justified. Then a Forerunner portal malfunction threw him into a universe where gods wore capes and heroes argued about hope. The DC universe had tested him in ways the Covenant never could. Not with plasma fire or overwhelming numbers, but with questions. Who do you serve? What do you protect? Where's the line between warrior and weapon? Superman had offered him redemption and hope. The idea that saving everyone was possible if you just believed hard enough. Batman had offered him honesty and paranoia. The recognition that even heroes needed contingencies and that trust was a luxury earned, not given. Wonder Woman had offered him choice. The understanding that warriors could question orders and that the hardest battles were fought against becoming the enemy. And Darkseid had offered him certainty, the promise that absolute order would end humanity's suffering forever, whether humanity wanted it or not. John had stood among gods and tyrants, between protection and control, on the blade-thin line that separated warriors from weapons. He'd coordinated defenses that saved thousands. He'd questioned conditioning that had defined him for decades. He'd fought alongside heroes who somehow trusted each other without formal hierarchy. He'd started learning what Diana meant when she said the difference between protector and oppressor was choice. What Batman meant when he said soldiers needed orders worth following. What Superman meant when he said hope was stronger than force. But he was still John 1:17, still a Spartan, still someone who measured success in acceptable losses and completed missions regardless of cost. Still someone who understood that sometimes protecting people meant making choices heroes wouldn't. The Justice League had accepted him provisionally. They'd given him a place among legends. They'd shown him that in this universe, trying to be better mattered more than being perfect. And John, for the first time in 30 years, had allowed himself to hope that maybe he could be something more than a weapon. Cortana was offline, undergoing procedures that might save her from rampancy. Darkseid was watching, waiting for the moment John's conditioning would override his choice. Amanda Waller had reminded him that weapons didn't get to pretend they were heroes. And somewhere in the dark multiverse, possibilities festered where Master Chief became exactly what everyone feared. A soldier so efficient, continue 1908 at protection that he forgot freedom mattered. But tonight, standing in the watchtower with Barry Allen talking about game nights and normalcy, John 1:17 made a choice. Not to be a hero, not to be a weapon, but to be someone who fought every day, every mission, to remain worthy of the people he protected instead of just powerful enough to control them. The mission parameters had changed. Completing the mission now meant completing it the right way. With choice, with questions, with the understanding that hope wasn't a luxury soldiers couldn't afford. It was the only weapon worth carrying. Master Chief had invaded the DC universe as a soldier seeking orders. He would remain as a warrior, learning to choose. And in a universe where gods walked as heroes and darkness lurked in every shadow, that choice, that daily battle to protect instead of control, was the most heroic thing he'd ever done. The Covenant had taught him war. The UNSC had taught him duty. Dr. Halsey had taught him sacrifice. But the Justice League was teaching him something new. That weapons could think, that soldiers could question, that choosing to protect freedom instead of enforcing order made you more than just effective. It made you worth saving. And in the DC universe, where hope shone brightest in darkness, Master Chief Petty Officer John 1:17 finally understood what he'd been fighting for all along. Not humanity's survival, humanity's right to choose its own destiny. Even when that destiny was messy, inefficient, and required faith instead of force, especially then. Hope shines brightest in the darkest night. More stories await.